So good morning and welcome to the Rincon Resources Investor Webinar. I'm Jane Morgan and today we are joined by Managing Director, Gary Harvey. In today's webinar, we'll be providing an update on the West Arunta project, followed by a Q&A session. So to ask questions throughout today's webinar, please use the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen. Gary, I'll hand over to you.
Great, thanks Jane, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. As Jane has stated, today I'm simply going to give an update essentially focusing on the West Arunta project. If you'd like to know more about our other projects, I encourage you to visit our website and look at some of the previous presentations and announcements. And with that, I'll get into it. Just run through the disclaimer. Okay, so just the company snapshot. Now, this is posted, these numbers are after our recent capital raising, which was 1.435 million via an oversubscribed placement in January. So you can, that's an overview. We're in a good position now. We're fully funded to execute our planned drilling programs at the West Arunta. Some of the key highlights. Reasons to invest. So we do have a diversified portfolio of, we have 3 projects. On the right-hand side, you can see that map. We have the West Arunta project, it's the project I'm talking about today. There's the South Telfer Project in the Patterson Range, and then there's also the Laverton Gold Project in the Laverton region of Western Australia. All our projects are in Western Australia. It's a Tier 1 jurisdiction, exploration and mining. And we have diamond and RC drilling programs at West Arunta due to start this week. In fact, I'm pleased to say I can confirm that drilling will start in 2 days' time. And my crew, technical team, are actually on the flight now to Alice Springs to get that program underway. Following the program, or during those drilling programs, we're actually going to be starting our geophysics surveys, and I'll get into that a little bit more. And then later on, after those particular geophysics and drilling programs, we're actually going to start doing some regional exploration work on the rest of our portfolio outside of the Picali prospect area. As I said, we now have strong cash to accelerate our exploration activities at West Arunta, and you can expect a reasonable amount of news flow over the next 6 months. Okay, we look at the tenement area of focus. So this is the West Arunta project overview. You can see that the tenement, the project area, or the West Arunta, is actually quite heavily pegged. Our tenements, you can see there in the light blue shading with the dark blue outlines. You can see Picali right here, and then due north of Picali is the Luni niobium project. That's about 80 kilometres away. So the West Arunta region, as a region itself, is an emerging critical minerals province. Okay, and the critical minerals in particular that I'm talking about here is copper, the rare earths, niobium, and nickel. Now that the government has put nickel on its critical minerals radar, there's a multitude of access routes. The main access routes at the moment are from Alice Springs. That's about 650 k's from our project due east. And then you've got Port Hedland, which is about 1,300 k's to the west. And then there's access being developed to Halls Creek from the Luni niobium deposit. Prominent players in the region include Rio Tinto, Tali Minerals, WA1 Resources, Encounter, CGN Resources, and of course us, Rincon. The region has obviously come to focus due to the recent discovery of Luni, and of course there's now been subsequent discoveries of like rare earth deposits, in particular at P2, Hosky and Korean. And then on the south side, you've got Rincon and Picali, and then there's some historical shows along that Central Australian suture, which we think is a very critical structure that helps to form these types of deposits, and that being ISEG and carbonatite style deposits. And on this map, you can see this shading across that Central Australian suture, for those who don't know where that is, and our project in relation to that suture zone. The Rincon land holding is 260 square k's and growing. We have a confirmed IACG system at Picali. We also have the potential for a carbonatite rare earth system also at Picali. Those two systems are adjacent to each other. And then within the project portfolio, we have multiple AOCG and carbonatite targets, which we're exploring. And our drilling programs start 28th of February as I speak. Okay, so just diving into the main tenement, which has been the focus of our exploration so far, and because our Picali prospect obviously sits on it, and it's the largest of our projects and the oldest of our tenement areas. So it's been the major focus so far. So this tenement is just, I'm going to work through a few slides here. This is just a base layer, so you can see where our tenement is. You can see the main road there goes to Kirikara community and the Alice Springs. Now, if we work through this, we started off when we got this project back in 2021. We did a review of the geophysics and historical data. The first point of that review was the structural geometry, I guess, of the framework for the region. You can see the structure on there. And then we followed that up with interpretation of magnetics and gravity. And that highlighted multiple targets, coincident targets of gravity and magnetics. These shown in the purple colour here. And then in 2022, we completed an airborne electromagnetic survey, and that highlighted these pink anomalies. Now, there's a few of those anomalies that also are coincident with their gravity magnetic targets. So they are some of our priority areas. And obviously, Picali is shown up here. And then you've got this Pascali zone over here. So these are all clusters of targets. And I like it when you get things in clusters. That means it's something good going on. So that's what's driving our exploration strategy at the moment, and that's going to be the focus of our exploration for the next 6 months. Okay, so following that, we identified 3 areas that we needed some detailed information. So the previous gravity geophysics information was based on regional gravity and magnetics. So what we needed to do was to do some infill ground detail gravity over these target areas. Now, we know gravity works very well. We've seen that at Looney, and also with Encounter, the gravity has really highlighted those intrusions related to IOCG and carbonatite. So we thought we'll go in and we'll do some very specific detailed gravity over the areas we know we've had existing targets. So that gets underway in a matter of weeks. So there's gravity, there's passive seismic surveying, and then there's also some infill inverse polarization surveys that have been done at Picali. And all that information is really going to start to accentuate and really define what these targets look like. Instead of big broad circles, we might actually get really pinpoint focused anomalies that will make it better for us to target with drilling. Okay, now if we just zoom into the Picali, we're going to take a little bit of a dive into the Picali prospect in particular. Okay, so these are the anomalies that sit over the Picali prospect area. Now, Picali is a nice big outcropping hill at the moment, so it's been fantastic for us in terms of mapping and sampling, surface sampling, that is, so soil sampling, rock tip sampling, and it's really helped us get a much better understanding of what we're looking at, as opposed to drilling blindly undercover, although we do have some targets that are undercover out here and a few here, and of course the other ones to the east on the previous slide, they're all undercover as well. So the fact that we've got some anomaly targets here that they're deep, but we can gain information from that surface that tells us a lot about what might be going on underneath, and again, helping us to target our drill programs. Overlay that previous structural interpretation, a little bit more detailed. You can see there's a bit of structure going on now. There's a lot more happening here, but this is quite simplified. Okay, now, if we look back historically at some of the soil sampling that was done by Ashburton Minerals, this is the spread of soil sampling that was actually done over the Picardy Hill. And what I'm showing here is in particular just the copper. Now, I can't show you the other elements that might be related to rare earths because the analysis back in the day wasn't that good. So that is unreliable information. But I'll get into the rare earth mineralisation in a minute. But at the starting here, we just see the copper. You can see that there's a very good correlation between copper and those magnetic geophysics targets. And then we can start to see some really good trends show up, which are also coincident with those targets. So this has been really beneficial for us. And then again, combined with what we've been able to take from recent mapping and rock chip sampling, it's helping us develop our drilling programs. Okay, and then we overlay some of the recent work and historical drilling. And again, you can start to see things taking shape. Now, our historical drilling from Ashburton really focused on those copper anomalies. You can see here that they've chased these copper anomalies. They've put a couple of holes up here at the western end of Picardy North, but really the eastern end, which we know is an IOCG system at the east, has a lot of potential. And of course, this is an area to follow up. Clearly, we're going to be following this up with drilling for the IOCG potential. But at the western end, Picardy North, we're developing more and gaining more information at the western end. We know that, yes, there's an IOCG signature at the western end, but there's also a tin tungsten signature and a rare earth signature. So there's a few different things happening there. And I think because there's a multiple metal signatures, I think that's a really exciting area for us. And then throwing over the results from rock chip analysis or sampling. Obviously haven't got all of them, I've just got the key ones there. Clearly, we've been getting high copper in outcropping copper-rich veins at the eastern end here. You see those results there, but of late, over the last 6-7 months, we've been starting to get this rare earth kick at the western end here, and this is the end that I'm starting to really like. Although we do have less of an understanding of what's happening here than we do at the eastern end. You can see some of those results there. The original rock chip that shone the light on this area was KWRK70. That was 0.29% trio. Now, all those following results, which are good, they're all PXRF results. So they are indicative, although, again, they are highlighting the fact that there's still rare earth anomalism there. And what we're seeing also is there's a little bit of a relationship between weak copper here and these rare earth trends. So we can see that the IOCG signature has dissipated as we move out from Picardy East. And then we're starting to get a bit of an overlap with the rare earth anomalism in this tin tungsten rich area. So that tells us that there's something different going on there, and we're very keen to explore and find out why. Okay, and finally, what everyone's here to know is where and why and how we're going to be doing this drilling. So based on all that information, which I think was important for everyone to know, we've got 2 diamond holes, which will start in 2 days. The first one being WADD1. Now, it is specifically designed to drill into this gravity target area here. Now, that's at depth. That target's actually about 500 metres deep. So this will be a 500 to 600 metre diamond hole to test that. Now, it's going in to test not only for, I guess, IOCG style mineralisation, but potentially carbonatite related rare earth mineralisation. And we hope to get some really good results there. It's going to go through some interesting structures and geology. The second diamond hole is WADD2. Now that's as you would expect, is drilling into this anomaly here, which again is quite deep, 500 odd metres deep, and that is specifically targeting deep IOCG mineralisation related or coincident next to that gravity anomaly. In about 2-3 weeks' time, we're going to start the RC drilling program. Now that drilling program is about 2,000 metres. Now the number of holes will depend on the depth of those of the holes. So the number of holes could be anywhere between 8 and 15 holes, but the specific locations are quite general at this stage. All we know is that we've got these 3 areas that we want to test, and this 2 of these areas are actually undercover, and the specific drill hole locations will be finalised obviously before we start drilling that program, but over the next 1 to 2 weeks before we start drilling. This is a timeline of the activities that I've just sort of spoken about. So we've got this cluster of activity here over the next 1 to 2 months. We've got diamond drilling. We've got geophysics starting roughly in the next week or so. Then we've got the RC drilling, followed by some more geophysics, and then later on towards the back end of the first half, we've got reconnaissance mapping and sampling on some of our other project areas. So over the next 6 months, you're going to see quite a consistent flow of information. All these little yellow dots, you can, roughly we would expect some announcement or news flow. So I think that's going to keep everyone well informed. And yeah, look, I thank you all for joining me today. I think that's it for me. And I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you choose to, if you're not already an investor or a shareholder, I hope you choose to get on board and follow the story. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Gary. And I would encourage webinar attendees to use the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen, should you have any questions for Gary. Look, I know you actually just covered this in your second last slide, but probably just to reiterate. So how many drill holes in total, both RC and diamond, and over what space?
So there's going to be there'll be 2 diamond holes. One is absolutely committed to, that's the first type diamond hole. The second hole, there's a few bit of information that we're still gathering, and whilst we do have a position and what we want to test there, that might shift just in sort of direction, left, right, and centre, depending on what we get out of this new information. So 2 diamond holes, roughly at least 1,000 metres. And then there's 2,000 metres of RC. And as I said, the specific locations of the RC drilling will be finalised in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And we can see anywhere between, as I said, 8 and maybe 10 to 15 RC drill holes, depending on the depth that we choose to plan to drill to.
Wonderful. This one's come through a few times, actually. So, and you did reiterate this in the presentation, but obviously with the cap raise, we are fully funded for the program, but how much, are we fully funded for the program? Sorry, rather.
Yeah, we are. So look, that's why we did this recent placement. We knew that we had already had the 2 diamond holes that was funded, but we wanted to do some RC. So we knew we needed to get a bit of extra cash to be able to do that. And we have that now. So the programs that I've spoken about in this webinar are now all fully funded.
Wonderful. Another question that's come through. So can you touch on the new ground that RCR has recently acquired in West Arunta?
Yeah, so look, the new ground we've acquired has been quite fortunate for us. They've been ground that other companies have dropped, and that they haven't, for whatever reason, decided they no longer wanted, but they fitted our criteria for targeting, and that criteria is any ground that's sort of in and around and related to that Central Australian suture zone. So we quickly picked up that ground, and we're starting to build a good presence along that suture zone.
Thank you. Just a question here on rainfall during the region. Are we still able to drill during minor rainfall?
Yeah, sure. So rainfall is not an issue. I mean, water won't necessarily kill you. Lightning might. So we do monitor as part of our procedures, lightning activity. That's the big one. And of course, this time of the year, you do have a bit of that, and quite often it just means you need to stop and put everything down and wait till it all passes. But we do need to keep an eye out for spot fires. So quite often, the lightning can cause grass fires, and in that event, that is a possibility of abandoning the program, as we had to, not abandoning, deferring the program, as we had to in December. But we're sort of coming, I guess, I like to think we're coming out of that wet season and things are starting to get a little bit better. So quite hopeful that we don't get interrupted, particularly with the fires.
Thank you, Carrie. There's just a question here for an update on the Laverton project. What's the plans for the Laverton project?
Oh, look, Laverton, look, it is part of our portfolio. At the moment, it's not our highest priority project, I'll be honest with you. So we're looking at assessing all options with regard to Laverton. I'd love it if someone was to come in and offer us a big swag of money, and we might sell it. Otherwise, we might farm it out and joint venture it to someone. But look, that's a work in progress for us.
Thank you, Gary. I know you mentioned this in the presentation, but what's the time frame for the actual program, both Diamond and the RC?
So look, I expect the Diamond program probably will take all of March. Now, our drill core needs to be processed back in Perth. So from the time of drilling the core, getting it back to Perth, having it processed and then analysed, you're probably looking at around probably around 6 weeks before we start getting results to the market. So that's pushing us back towards in May, I'd imagine, for results. RC, even though it's starting a bit later, there's less post-processing of samples. They just go straight to the lab for analysis. So I'd expect those perhaps even a bit earlier than the Diamond.
Thank you. And I think just following this program, this question's for there. So are you planning to undertake any infill or more detailed geochemistry at the project?
Absolutely. Yeah. So look, whilst we're drilling, highly likely that I'll actually get up there for myself and go off and do sampling and some more mapping. Every bit of information is helpful. So yes, that will be done. And so you can expect a fairly strong, well, you'll expect more results from rock chip sampling to come out consistently, I guess, over the next 6 months.
Thank you, Gary. Another one that's come through. So if there is evidence of carbonatites in the Diamond core, will we get an announcement of geological intersections prior to the assays?
Look, it depends. I mean, we'd have to be pretty certain that it's carbonatite, and it looks like a carbonatite, and if it smells like a carbonatite, it's a carbonatite. So look, it really depends. But we'll make that call at the time. Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. Just a question here on discussions with our neighbours. Have we been approached by anybody? Was that sort of an option?
Well, look, everybody talks to everybody in the region, and that's more for logistical purposes to get things timing. As for instance, I talk quite regularly with CGN, and our geophysics programs are being done in conjunction with their geophysics programs. So they'll finish one area and come to us, and vice versa. Likewise with the drilling. So I think you can join the dots and imagine that if we're talking about logistics, we're probably talking about other things as well.
Thank you, Gary. And look, I think just finally, maybe to reiterate, what should shareholders be looking forward to over the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, I think you should be, I'm hoping, best case scenarios, you're looking forward to an announcement of a discovery. But I think what you'll see is, our exploration activity is obviously going to be quite, I think, fruitful. And you should get some reward on the share price at least. So for those who flick on and flick off, you've got to make some money. But for those sitting in there for a long term, I think the reward will be quite promising for you.
Wonderful. Well, that looks like, oh, hang on, there's one more. So what is the plan for the Telfer project over the next 6 months?
Yeah, look, Telfer, as you know, we completed our mammoth drilling program. Now, the results to the market weren't as flattering as they could have been, but I think technically it still stacks up. And so we'll be doing a review, I guess, of our project and coming up with a strategy to revisit Telfer when the time's right. At the moment, there's no point us going and drilling any money there or putting any money into the system there. So it's not going anywhere. But we're going to focus on West Arunta for the moment. This work needs to be done. Telfer's had a fair bit of money spent on it at the moment, so it's in good standing. And we'll come back to that maybe later in the second half of the year, or perhaps even next year.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the presentation today, and thank you for your questions. Should we have missed anything, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of our ASX releases. But we look forward to hosting you again next time.
Thanks, Jane. Thank you, everyone.